Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you all are doing good. Today we are going to talk about or learn about introduction to Python, and this is your first class and I hope you all will like it. So without delay guys, let us start. So we are starting with introduction to Python. So what we are going to cover? We are going to cover on introduction to Python, then OOPS concept, then Python data types and operators, conditional statements, loops, then Python functions, file handling and exception handling. And these are the core topics, guys. If you want to understand AI in a more broader way, these are the core concepts for Python which you have to cover. So what is Python? Why Python came into picture? So Python is interpreted, right? The first is interpreted. When we're talking about Python, the first term which will come into your mind is it should be interpreted object oriented. It's based on classes and objects and all its OOPS principles, right? We have encapsulation, abstraction, then polymorphism, inheritance, everything, all concepts, all OOPS concepts are present in Python. That's why it is object oriented. And high level programming language. Why high level? I will talk about in our upcoming slides. But for now, you can understand it's interpreted, object oriented, and high level programming language. It was developed by Guido van Rossum. He's a guy, okay, and was released. This program or this language was released on 1991. Okay, on what he did, right? Once he was this thing came into his mind when he was watching his BBC comedy series, Monty Python's Flying Circus. He got that Python word from that. Maybe that is his favorite show, and he got that word from that series. So this is how this story came up. Then Python is one of the most popular and fast growing language, and this language has been used by almost all platforms or all companies like YouTube, Google, Dropbox, BitTorrent, Netflix. Everyone is using, and nowadays small to larger enterprises, companies, IT industries everywhere, they're using Python language. Python is used by Netflix. What Netflix is doing, guys, based on their recommendations, like whatever the recommendations, like the customers rating, right? When we are creating the first time an account in Netflix, you should be able to see or maybe observed during that time that they are asking to choose some three genres of entertainment platform, like either you want horror or comedy or anything, or maybe drama. So once you choose that, what it is doing, so it will always recommend based on that perspective or that choice to you, and that is nothing but your AI, right? AI has been used there, and they are recommending, like automatically they will recommend and you will enjoy all these shows because those are your choice, right? So that is how Python is the base language there again, like in Netflix and Google's internal search engine again, they have used this Python as the core language. And Python is compacted with so many libraries and frameworks, and I will show you how many libraries they have compacted in one language, and that is why it is very simpler, because you have to write very minimum code here, right? Very minimum code. You don't have to write, and the language is very simple that anybody, if a non-coder background, they will come and they will see, they will tell, okay, this is a really easy to learn language, and they can be proficient in a very short period of time. The most recent and the major version of Python is 3.14, and like right now it is 3.12 going on. 3.14, it's evolving, guys. Every time when some new things like new features or new functionalities they are adding up, that is getting incremented to a newer version, right? So, and the latest version is having JIT compiler, just in time compiler. And Python, why Python is so famous, I'll tell you one story. Python has this large community. They have this large community where they have this whole team, and they're continuously working on evolving this language more and more better way, and that's how they came up till 3.14. Like, they have started almost, definitely they must have started with 1, right? And now the versioning and all these things happening, and so many things they have compacted right now. Okay, and that becomes 3.14, 3.12 to 3.14 range, right? So, when we talked about interpreted language now, right? Now let us see what is the difference between compiled language and interpreted language. So, when we're talking about Python interpreter, again, at other corner of your brain, we should be knowing, okay, what is the meaning of compiled language. So, compiled language, guys, it is always based on 2 steps, and interpreted language is on single step. What is 2 step, guys? Okay, whenever you're writing code in IDE integrated development environment, right? Any IDE, just take any open source or any IDE. When you're writing code, at that time, whatever you are writing code, when you execute or when you compile, just take one example of .NET. Okay, .NET, or in .NET we have C# as a language. That's a compiled language. Okay, so when you're running that code, what is happening, right? Whatever the code you are writing, that is a machine, like machine readable language, right? So that will be converted to intermediate language, IL. And once intermediate language is there, then after that it will give you the output. So it is a 2 step. First it is converting to intermediate language, then after that it is going to give you the output. That is your compiler. However, in case of interpreter, the code is executed in single step. Whenever you are writing 100 lines of code, at that time the execution happens from starting point, and it will happen step by step. So in case if some failure came up, it will stop there and it will give you the error. Okay, this error happened in this slide, right? That is what your interpreted language. And whenever you are writing code in a compiled language, okay, like I said, right, it has to be converted to machine code, or the IL. The IL, intermediate language, is the the middle compiler, who is handling this. And here the execution happened without any compilation. The speed is fast because it is happening on CPU. Okay, the directly, like, first execution is happening, then it is getting saved in CPU directly. However, the speed of execution is slow because your compiler is not coming into picture here. CPU, like saving in CPU directly, is not happening. First it is going through each and every step, then after that it is getting saved in your, like, first it is happening in RAM, then after that it is going ahead and saving it in CPU. So as it is directly happening in RAM, it is slower because RAM is just a random access memory. It is a temporary memory, right? Whenever you are writing some code, it will allocate some memory, and the brain of it is your CPU. CPU is allocating memory. However, that thing is happening on over RAM. And like I said here, CPU executes the code, and the code is interpreted, but it cannot be executed by CPU. Like I said, right? Once error encountered, the code will stop at that time. It won't rerun. You have to go and debug complete code, and you have to see where exactly that is failing, and you have to put a lot of effort to track it, because you don't know where exactly is happening. You have to brainstorm so many times, okay, where exactly that error could be. However, it is very easy to identify in case of interpreter, and I'll show you everything in the code, how easy it is. Like, as soon as you are running at a particular step, it will tell you at this step, at this line of code, that error is coming, and you can go and track it. And there are a few examples of compiled languages, which are C, C++, C#. Like I said, one example of C#, that's a .NET language. Then we have different examples of interpreted language. We have JavaScript, Python, and we have BASIC. All those things are your interpreted language. Then here the program is processed as a whole, right? Like I said, it will first compile complete thing. Then after that, it will give you the output. However, here instructions, like each instructions is interpreted once at a time, and Every time the interpreter runs and execution happens, right? Step by step execution, like I said, right? Then here RAM is not needed directly, it will happen in compiler. Here we need the RAM because the execution is happening on RAM. And yeah, that is all for compiler and interpreted language. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Now let me go ahead with the next slide. So we have different application domains for Python. Like every language has its own pros and cons, guys, right? So here, as it has so many advantages to use, we have different application domains at the same time. We have network and business applications where they are using Ansible as a library. We have machine learning, ML, DL, deep learning, scikit-learn, TensorFlow, PyTorch, all these things are used for those functionalities. Then we have AI. In AI, we are using LangChain, TensorFlow, Keras, OpenCV, OpenAI. Okay, these are the different libraries by which you can use and you can create your own chat GPT. You can create your own, assistants, voice assistants and all. So different applications we have. Then we have data analysis and visualization. We have like for bars and charts and everything. We have Matplotlib, PyPlot, Seaborn, right? Then we have NLP, natural language processing. It is a completely different module and I'm going to cover it. I'm not going to leave, like I said. I am going to cover this in this our journey, AI journey. And we have core NLP, Hugging Face, scikit-learn. All these things we are using in case of NLP. We have web and desktop applications where we have Django, Flask, Fast API, right? Then data science and statistics, we have NumPy, Pandas. Those are the two strongest language or strongest libraries I can say in Python, which has so many functionalities. It will solve so many complex problems of your Excel, of your other databases which you are using. It will happen in only one platform, all those things. So we will cover everything in our upcoming videos. Now we will understand about benefits of Python. What are the benefits of Python, guys? Like I said, benefits means advantages. The first advantage I can say it's very user friendliness. That means it is very easy to use. There is those certain rules you have to follow, and you do not have to follow any kind of syntaxes, and like natural it will come. Like when you're typing code, naturally those things will come. Okay, this could be next. Then we have one more advantage, such as improved productivity, right? Because you are writing less code, productivity is more like we are spending less time in thinking, right? What I have to write, what is the next step, how can I complete this code? All those things won't be there because you have so many libraries to handle that. You just need to utilize those libraries. You just need to call those modules and libraries. Then the third one is less coding, like I said, because of improved productivity, you have to write less coding here, right? That we have numerous libraries. Like I said, we have plenty of libraries to take care. You just need to use those libraries. Dynamically typed, I'll tell you one example here. When we are writing other languages, right, we are writing, how we are writing, for example, we are writing an integer. Okay, we are writing int x equal to 10. String x equal to your whatever the sentence or a word or whatever it is. However, those to convert them, either you have to typecast it, right? Implicitly convert or explicitly convert, boxing, unboxing, all those concepts are coming. Here, that is not the case. Whenever you are writing like you are assigning some variable, for example, you are taking x equal to 10. At the same time, if I am writing x equal to my name is Edumentor Dipti, then what it is going to do? First, it will come, like the interpreter will come and read x equal to 10. If I'm printing there, like if I'm putting print x, it will give me 10. Next line when it will go x equal to that sentence, at that time, what it will print, guys, if I give a print x, it is going to give me that sentence. So dynamically it changed, right? Dynamically, I can change from one type to another type without any hesitation. It is handling internally. Everything is handling internally here. We have different compatibility with different languages. Like I said, Python can be combined with C, like C, C++, C Sharp. Every language you can combine it. And like I said, most of the functionalities, one tip here, like most of the functionalities, they have converted it from C language here. That is why like the easiness will be there when you'll start going through this Python. Powerful data structures. It has so, like they have handled these list, tuples, dictionaries, arrays, everything in a really such a way that you'll not feel any difficulty. In other languages, you have to have this type. You have to keep type. If you like dynamically, if you want to change that, you have to put type. You need to insert type in that, and during runtime, we have to call different types, and that will be replacing. Here, it is not like that. Here, the concept of list and other data structures are really good, and we will cover everything in our upcoming videos. This is open source anywhere. You just need to get Jupyter Lab to start with, or you can use Visual Studio Code. Okay, you can use PyCharm. So all these things can be easily available. You don't have to worry about it. You just need a RAM size of 8 GB to start working with, and a good processor. Maybe you can get some better processor, and the RAM size, minimum RAM size should be 8 GB. Basically, like if you get a laptop with better gaming processor, right, where the games are happening, so those processors are good, and the graphical card is good, that good GPU those systems have, so you can avail that. Then we will go ahead to the features of Python. The features, like in previous we understood about benefits of Python. Now we will understand what are the features. Again, those are kind of repeated, but still I'm going to explain you. One is the interpreted language, right? Directly runs line by line, and whenever it fails, it will stop there and it will give you, okay, and in this line that error came up. Then programmers can quickly find errors in this. So like the effectivity or the effectiveness of writing code is getting increased in this case, right? Then easy to use language. It is English type language. That's why it is high level language. That is why it is high level language. So here, one thing you have to keep it in mind when you are writing Python code, it is not following any curly braces and all those things. It will just follow indentation. So when you are writing any kind of loop, take if condition. Okay, when you are writing if condition, if you are putting condition, then after that if you come to the next line, it will not automatically, it will like the indentation will be handled, and next one in and if you have to, or in else you have to give again indentation error. So it will, you have to always follow the indentation here. Indentation is the key here. Then it is a dynamically typed language. Like I said, that programmers do not have to declare variable. Dynamically it is controlling, right? We have a high level language. This is an English language. Okay, we can say English language. Literally, when you are writing code, everything is getting like when you are writing print, like you should be able to understand, okay, when you are writing print, that means it is printing a statement. When I am giving input, we have input function. So like that. But in other languages, you have to have that sense, okay, what could be the syntax for this? You have to follow those syntaxes. It's an object-oriented language. It is based on objects. Like I said, classes and objects. OOPS concept it is based on, right? Then we will understand on Python libraries. What are the libraries, guys? A library, again, is a collection of frequently used codes. Like they are bundling all those assemblies together in a like in a bucket, I can say, right? So like I said, here the community, they have their own community, and they have created these libraries by like practicing a lot, by discussing, by brainstorming a lot, and they have created so many libraries. And around we have around 137,000 Python libraries as of now, and those are getting used in different various applications, various industries, and mostly we are using web applications, data science, ML and AI, right? And some of the most popular Python libraries are Matplotlib, Pandas, NumPy. Then we have Requests, OpenCV, Python, then Keras, Okay, all these things are combination of all AI, ML, and all those applications. Then we have Python frameworks. What are framework? What are Python frameworks, guys? When we're talking about a framework is what? It is a collection of packages and modules, right? Whenever we're talking about .NET framework, again that is the same thing. So here we're talking about Python framework. Okay, so a module again is a set of related code, and the package is a set of modules. Module, when we're talking about a set of codes, and package is a set of modules. So when you might have worked with .NET, many of the people, and you must be observing that we have something called NuGet package, right? That means it is containing so many modules. When you're installing that package, you just need to using then like you can just start system.web, system.web.http, all those like modules you can get it from that single package, right? Then developers can use Python frameworks, okay, to build different kind of Python applications more quickly. That is what the frameworks helps. And they do not have to worry much when they are writing code. They will just have this low level details to start with, right? So we have two different kind of frameworks. One is a full stack framework, okay, where everything, almost everything is needed or is compacted here in this full stack framework to create very large applications. If you want to create very large applications, you can use this full stack framework. Then we have micro framework. Another one is a micro framework where it's a basic framework and it provides a minimal functionality and compact kind of applications you can create here. So the most popular frameworks are your Django, okay, that is a web framework for large applications. Flask, again we have a micro framework, okay, for small applications, right? TurboGears, it's a framework for web applications, again which will create faster and easier. That means it has less amount of libraries or coding needed. Like it can be easily achievable by using TurboGears. Then PyTorch again is a framework for machine learning, okay, and it is built over Torch library, and it has been greatly used for NLP, computer vision, and robotics. Everything we will cover in our upcoming videos, guys. So all I need is your time and your subscription. So please start doing that. So we have different code editors here, or the integrated development environment here used, and those are nothing but Jupyter Notebook, very widely used. Then Visual Studio Code, Anaconda, Google Colab is having a very good amount of GPU it is providing, and nowadays it is getting very famous because of that. It won't hang or it won't kill your program whenever you are writing code, because if you go ahead, right, and once we will start working with if we'll go ahead and if we'll work on very large data sets, it will take time to process, but here it is very good in kind of processing time, and it's a bit faster. And there are several others available like Eric, Wing, Atom, PyDev, PyCharm. PyCharm is again one more famous, Pyder, Rodeo. Then I will show you all these code editors, guys, but let me first complete this this part, like this slide part. Then we have Python identifiers and keywords. What are identifiers, guys, and what are keywords? Identifier means when we are writing x equal to 10. So here x is our identifier. That means that's a user defined variable which you are trying to say. And whenever writing keywords are predefined and reserved words used, okay, in Python, and that have special meanings for compiler or for interpreter. We can't use a keyword as a variable name. That is, like, we have setting rules. We will cover that. We cannot use keyword as a variable name, because variable name, like I said, those are user defined. Keyword is a predefined. And Python follows indentation, like I already mentioned. Python is case sensitive language. One more important factor: if you will write capital TREU true or small TREU true, both are different, because Python is following capital TRUE, true. Small true won't work here, it will give you error. So it's a case sensitive language, even in case of written, right? Then we have identifiers, okay, where you can give like classes, functions, and variables. You can give different kind of identifiers to them. And identifiers can have sequences of letters and digits, and the first letter cannot be a digit, and it should always start with underscore. First letter, when you are writing code, it should not be a digit, it will give you error. Okay, invalid identifier or something. Then we have like these white spaces cannot be used, like this, all the symbols, right? We have all the symbols, those cannot be used, along with white spaces cannot be used. So there are set of rules, and here I have given few examples as well, just to go like make you understand which are valid identifiers and which are invalid identifiers. So valid identifiers are nothing but, like here we are giving name, right? So that is a valid one. Then items, this is a valid one. We have given underscore, this is a valid one. Here even I have given return underscore number, valid one, right? Food item, valid one. However, at the same time, if you'll see, I have given at the rate. At the rate is not applicable, right? So at the rate name is going to give me error. Then here it is starting with digit 1, 2. It is going to give me error. Final space code, so white space is not allowed. So this one again is going to give me error. This is a keyword, return is a keyword. It is not going to run, and it is going to give me an error. This hashed again, you cannot start with your keyword, so it is going to give me error. Okay. Now let me show you the different IDs which we have. Okay, just so here we are with our first. Let me show you how the Google Colab looks like. So this is your Google Colab. How to go there? You just need to type, open your Google, and you just need to type Google Colab. Okay, it will give you something like this. Welcome to Colab. Okay, then after that, you just need to select. You don't have to use this. You just create new notebook. And guys, for Google Colab, right? Like the name says, you just need to have a valid email, and it should be connected with your drive. Okay, you can open your drive and keep it with your workspace where you are using, and that's it. So the basic requirement here is you need to have a Gmail, Google Mail. So I'm leaving it already. I have opened it. Let me show you the complete ID, how it is. Okay, so here you are able to see different kind of options. So all you have to know is new notebook in Drive. Okay, then open notebook, upload notebook. If you want to rename, move, and all, save a copy in Drive. So one thing is, everything here is happening in Drive only. So you should have a Drive. Keep it open always. Then in view, you don't have to do anything. Insert, no. Yeah. So runtime, again, we have runtime, right? In runtime, we like when you're talking about run all, right? So in runtime, when we are talking about run all means, it will, like whatever the code editors present in your Google Colab, everything it will run at once. Okay. Then we have run selection, run cell and below. Then we have manage sessions. If you are opening multiple windows, sometimes it is going to give you an not like a warning kind of thing. Please close other sessions. Okay. Then we have yeah, that much. Then here we have two tabs. You can see one is code and another one is text. So if you type code, one code editor will open. If you type text, you will get a text editor like this. And here how you have to write text, guys. So whenever you are writing this, you should be having giving comments and all, right? You should be having like when you're writing a paragraph, you want to keep something for yourself, for your understanding. So this is how we can do it. Okay, so this is how I can write. So maximum it will take. This is Python introduction. So if I'll run this is how it is coming. And here we don't have much indentation. Like you can take like this. Same thing if I'll keep. See, so basically we have usually like if we'll keep till 6 hash or like till 6, it is going to be like that is the last size. Okay, let me copy this and just paste it. So you can see here the sizes are changing, right? Then this is going to be, so you can see it is changing, right? So if you want to change the font of your text, you can achieve with this. So you can see from smaller to larger. If we give one single hash, it is going to be very large text, and till 6 hash is a symbol. Till 6 hash, it is going to be like this. Then if you want to run, for example, if I'm writing print, and here again guys, it like you can use it double quotation and single quotation, both will work for strings. So this is Python intro. So if I'm printing, for printing, what is this? What is the shortcut? Shift enter. For printing, it is shift enter. And for giving a, like if you want to add one more code editor, you don't have to come here. You should be able to see here, right? Code text. You just need to click this. You need to click this. If you want to add below, you just need to click this, right? So many code editors came up. And the place where you want, you can create your text like this, right? So this is how your code editor looks like for Google Colab. And like I said that let me go through the Jupyter Lab. For Jupyter Lab, guys, what you have to do, we have very so many things or so many ways we can get Jupyter Lab, but I prefer for Anaconda. So for that, what I have to do, you just need to type Anaconda download. So if you keep Anaconda download, it will just like you will get this kind of page, and you just need to get started. And it is going to give you some sign up with email, or if you have already an email signed up, you just need to sign in and you need to go ahead, and it is going to give you the download option, and you can get that. So once you get it, what is the next step you have to do? I have taken a screenshot. The prompt will look like this, guys. So you will get a command prompt kind of thing. See, like the prompt where you just need to type Jupyter, Jupyter, okay, Jupyter Lab in that prompt. So when you will type this, it is going to give this kind of screen. That means it is connecting to your Jupyter Lab. So this is a kernel to connect Jupyter Lab. Okay, every time you have to do. And once you will keep this idle, right, automatically your like it won't happen until analysis close. It will just reconnect. It will just stay idle. Whenever you are starting again your or resuming your work, it will just start. Then after like after this successfully this ran, it will come here, and the ID will be looking like this. Okay, you will get some local host, and these are the different like terminal, text file, markdown file, then Python file, so contextual help, console notebook. Console means it is a kind of where you are writing .py extension, right? So Python means it will always .py. Here notebook means it is going to be PYIPYNB. Okay, IPYNB. So I need notebook, right? So I can go and open my notebook, and this is how it looks like. And on your top right side corner, if you see, we have Python 3 IPY kernel. Okay. So like I said, it is always based on kernel processing. And here how we can change. So here we have code and markdown and raw. Code means you can write code. Let me type it here. So there I have shown you with single quotation. Here I am showing you with double quotation. Hello world. See? Again, then I want to show you how dynamically it worked, right? Now let me just take one example. Print X. Now let me take another example. This is my class. Print X. See, dynamically it changed, right? The same X variable I got 10 here, and the same X variable I got, this is my class. So this is how dynamically it worked, and let me show you few examples of keywords as well. Okay, so if I'm like, let me take with keyword. See, it is telling invalid syntax, correct? You can see it is giving me invalid syntax. If I'll start with underscore will work. This my var int my var. See, it is printing. However, if I take hash, it is just a comment, guys. Here hash means it is comment. Okay, I'll show you how to give double comment and single comment. Then we have what else we have? We have we saw how to, okay, let me keep this. Int X. My var is not recognized as an internal or external command, operable program or batch file. See, it is giving me error, right? And why this X was print? Sorry, I need to take this. My bad, guys. I just need to take this and print it. Invalid syntax. So these are your examples of keyword. Like keywords, again, you have to sorry, my bad. The identifiers you should always choose based on the rule, and you should not go beyond the rules. Now I will show you the different kind of comments. So if we give hash, right, this is my first class. This is your single comment. Okay, again I can write this is single comment. For multiple comments, if you want to give multiple comments, this is how you can give. This is my class. I am teaching Python programming. So this is your, you can see, this is your multiple or multi-line comment, correct? And I think we have pretty much covered all these things. And yeah, we will understand further topics, okay, in our upcoming videos. Again, Visual Studio Code, most of the people you guys are using, so I don't have to explain about it much. But yeah, I mean, you guys can start exploring all these IDs and you can just work on it. But I prefer to work with Google Colab, and whenever we are working with AI and all, when we'll go ahead, we will use Jupyter Lab. So yeah, we have covered our introduction to Python. I hope you all guys liked it. And yeah, see you. Bye. Well, that is all for now. We will cover further topics of Python in our upcoming videos. Till that time, see you. And start subscribing, like, share your comments, share your feedback, share this channel link to all your near ones and friends. This will help them to learn and grow in their career. And till that time, see you. Bye. Take care.